What is the First Amendment? Many teenagers are not aware of the full definition of the First Amendment. So today we will be highlighting 4 of its elements. Here's our first segment with Carol Logan over the freedom of religion.
Thanks, Brianna. I'm Carol Logan. Let's take a look at freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is the freedom of an individual or a community, in public or private, to manifest their religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Religious tolerance is a part of this freedom and is stated as an attitude of acceptance towards other people's religions. In Pleasant Grove City, Utah, the city refused to allow a monument of the 7 principles of creation to be placed in its Pioneer Park. The same park as other monuments, including one displaying the 10 Commandments and a September 11th monument. A religious organization called Summum wanted to install the 7 principles of creation, but the city denied them the right to set up the monument. The park only allowed monuments that were directly related to the city and were donated by groups that had long-standing ties to the community. When Summum sued the city for refusing to allow their religion monuments to be set up, the United States Court of Appeals ruled that Pleasant Grove City had no right to discriminate on the basis of the content of the monuments. If the city permitted the 10 Commandments, they could not bar the 7 principles of creation. Now, Pioneer Park and other public places must be open to all religions on an equal basis or open to none at all. Now, back to the...
Just like in Pleasant Grove, many problems like this arise throughout the country. The government tries to deal with these issues quickly by adding on to and clarifying them in the court. Another issue the government was faced with occurred in Freehold Borough, New Jersey. Here's Laurel Weil with this story.
Thank you, Brianna. I'm Laurel Weil. Today I'll be explaining issues regarding the freedom of assembly. The freedom of assembly is the right to peacefully come together and express, promote, pursue, and defend common interests. In 2003, a group of Latin American laborers gathered in an open-air job market on Throckmorton Street in Freehold Borough, New Jersey. Cesar Perales filed suit for the Latin American laborers, saying that Freehold Borough was restraining their First Amendment rights by preventing them from congregating at a vacant lot to solicit work. When Freehold began enforcing residential zoning laws against overcrowding, officers were sent to the vacant lots to pass out papers notifying workers and employers that they could no longer continue the open-air job market. They also notified the day laborers their names may be sent to the Department of Homeland Security if the market continued. This caused many of the workers to find new places to gather and solicit work, or to find jobs that paid less money. The issue I present today is typical of how freedom of assembly issues are dealt with all across our nation. Back to you in the studio, Brianna.
In many cases, immigration seems to be the reason for issues like this, causing many problems for workers. Freedom of speech has many problems pertaining to this situation as well. Here's Lauren Ansong with another story from a high school in Fallbrook, California.
Good afternoon, Brianna. I'm Lauren Ansong, and today I'll be explaining what freedom of speech implies and what might be crossing the line. Freedom of speech is the right to speak freely without censorship or limitation. Another name for this is freedom of expression, which implies not only the right of speaking, but also any act of communication or ideas or information, regardless of the medium used. The International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights states the right to freedom of speech as the right to hold opinions without interference. Everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. There are many current issues with this human right. Recently in Fallbrook, California, the Fallbrook High principal, Rod King, censored 2 articles of the school's Tomahawk newspaper, canceled his journalism class, and fired the newspaper's faculty advisor. He stated that the first article was factually inaccurate, and he believes the second article was actually written by an adult rather than a student. The American Civil Liberties Union sued the Fallbrook High School District under the reasoning that the principal violated the free speech of students. Now there are laws protecting high school and college employees and students from retaliation by administration who may be upset by student speech. Today, the definition of what crosses the line of free speech and expression is still questionable, but laws like these are enabling it to become a little bit clearer. I'm Lauren Ansong. Back to you, Brianna.
As Lauren said, the line between what is stated by freedom of speech and what is taking it too far is very questionable. This can also apply to freedom of press, which is similar to freedom of speech, but is different in what it applies to. Here's Megan Bolden with a story from New York about two journalists who were faced with this problem.
Thanks, Brianna. Lately, journalists are feeling that the freedom of the press is being restricted. Hello, I'm Megan Bolden. Two other journalists face prison for doing their jobs. Judith Miller and Matthew Cooper were sentenced up to 18 months in prison for refusing to testify before a grand jury when questioned about their source. The case investigating who in the Bush administration leaked the identity of covert CIA operative Valerie Plame. Miller is claiming that she doesn't know who gave her Plame's name, but admitted discussing her with Louis Libby, Vice President Dick Cheney's chief of staff, who is also facing indictment for his role in the affair. These cases threaten serious harm to freedom of the press and the vital protection it provides against government misconduct. Though the people remain split on their opinions in indicting Miller, many are defending her, saying that her only crime was doing her job as the founders of this nation intended. Who would want to take the risk of being in prison for doing their job? And is this freedom of press soon to be condemned by our government? Back to you, Brianna.
I'm sure many people wouldn't want to risk going to prison for doing their job, which is why the government needs to solve these issues with the First Amendment quickly. To answer the question of what is the First Amendment is the law that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I hope this clarifies what the First Amendment is and what kind of issues we are faced with over it daily. See you at District.